You mentioned Patrick's experience racing, and I honestly had no idea before this movie. I mean, you're not just a racer. You own Dempsey Racing. You've placed in events like the Le Mans. Have you been tracking this project for a long time? Because I know it has a long history.
Yeah, stalking Michael for about 15 years. The first time I ran into him, we were at MGM, and it was for the Mille Miglia. They were doing a version here in America. And I was like, there's Michael Mann, of course. I knew he was pretty fanatical when it came to cars and Ferraris in particular. So I went up and had an opportunity to talk to him. And I had heard about the movie, so I'd asked him then, and that was about 15 years ago, where the movie was at. And then I called my agent the next day to get a copy of it. I read it, and I was very familiar with Ken Brock's book, which is a lot of this is inspired by. So I knew the story, and I was amazed at where he wanted to start the story. Because there's so much going on in Ferrari's life. Where do you begin this? But I think this moment, right after the death of their son, is such an interesting moment to come into this. And I think the spring team, or 1955 through 61, really dramatic period in motorsport racing, very romantic, very dangerous. A lot was evolving, and also Ferrari was struggling to really keep the doors open. And I could never forget the script. And I was racing at the time. And people would always go, "Well, you're gonna make a movie like Le Mans? You're gonna do something like that?" And I could never get Michael's story out of my head. It was just so. It was good because when you make a racing movie, it's like, okay, what happens when the driver gets out of the car? What's the drama? We know there's going to be a dynamic happening on the track. What's the human dynamic? And I remember when we did the first reading of this together. Some of us were in the room, and a lot of people were on Zoom. And I remember just listening to it. I couldn't get over to Italy because of COVID and all of those restrictions. And I kept thinking about it. I could feel the emotion of the script. And I think that's what makes it so special to me, is he captures the racing beautifully, the detail and the authenticity, but he also captures humanity from different perspectives. And these are characters you'd love to spend more time with and to go and get to know them even more. I think with your character in particular was the rock stars, or the James Dean of motorsport at the time. A lot of these guys were coming, and women too, many actually female racers at that time, were coming from aristocracy, and they would lose their lives, and that would be the end of that lineage would be over. And the same for you. And I think Von Tripp was a German driver who in 61, 62 died tragically at Monada. So we got into all that discussion at this event, and then I just couldn't stop thinking about the script. And then a year ago, I think right before shooting, I was working with your hair gentleman doing wigs on. So yeah, that's right. And I was like, I hear the movie's going. He said, is that true? And I think the next day, the Formula One race, the first race this season started, and I sent an email to Michael, and he responded immediately. And I'm like, can I come in and have a meeting and sit down and talk to you? I mean, I'll do anything in this film. I'll be a PA. I just want to be a part of the experience. Within reason. But so, I did do a little bit of that on this, but it was great. I just was so happy to be a part of the movie and to be able to contribute. And he goes, yeah, I want you to play Piero Taruffi because you're old. And I'm like, perfect. My hair's almost there. So we went through the dyeing process. I didn't have a wig, so they blew up my hair and burned it up and everything. So that's how it all started. So for me, it's been a dream job. Number one, just to be in Michael's orbit. I mean, we talk a lot about his depth of research. I mean, he's had this project for 30 years. So he would show you rooms where he had books and images and little things that were personal to the drivers and to the Ferrari family. It was just so infectious that it was like you're sitting with a professor, and it's a master class in filmmaking and storytelling. And in his kindness. I mean, it's a little intimidating if you ask him something because he can't hear. So he'll yell at you publicly. So I had to kind of get over my fear to ask questions because, did anybody else feel like that? So I never asked him for an adjustment, and I was scared. The only time I'd suggest something if it was a technical thing, and then we get lost in that rabbit hole for a bit because he knew so much about it, and then he'd come out. So it was a dream job for me to be on stage. Well, to be sharing this experience with all of you was really quite special. And we were there in Modena, and we had a chance to eat the food, the people, the warmth, and really immerse yourself in the culture. And once again, it's about the heart and humanity, which is what I love about the movie.
For prep, did the three of you go racing together?
Oh, I wouldn't get out of the car. And you got really quick from never driving a stick before to driving a stick. And a really good driver. So a lot of potential there. And also, you should talk about the movie you're doing right now, too. He's playing Senna I don't know if you guys remember that. So yeah, so he's just finishing that up, and great driving ability.
Now this is my thing.
Yeah.
Getting racing drivers that dies tragically.
You got a lot.
If anyone has a project with another racing driver that dies, I know how to do it.
Adam, what about for you? Did you get behind the wheel?
Yeah, in pre-production, we raced contemporary Ferraris and Modena and some single-wheel open-wheel single-seaters and like the little Rebels and some Mazda Miatas in California. Yeah, in California. But then once we started, no, then I couldn't go around the car. But I did race one of the chassis that they didn't put the skin on yet. I want to say it was the 801, but you become very painfully aware of how important a roll cage is and seat belts and cars that have a little bit of room. I feel Patrick can correct me, but at the time it was kind of more ideal to be thrown from the car than to be stuck in it, burning.
Really?
And it's not because of being absent-minded that they didn't have seatbelts. It just wasn't part of the culture at the time. Yeah.
It was the fear of the fire. So what would happen is the material that they were working with and where the tanks were, now we have a cell that will protect you if the thing is ruptured. But then it was really fire. They'd get trapped under the car. And they were losing drivers almost every weekend, 2 or 3 drivers every weekend. So that's how dangerous it was. And it was a Caterham chassis that they ended up building the cars with. It was the same family, I think 4th generation family that built all of the replicas that were subsequently, I think, crushed after we finished shooting.
They were crushed purposefully?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.